Welcome to the AfterBurners podcast. I'm your host, Samuel Oney, and this is episode 38, the last ever episode of 2021. With me on Zoom is Wes Spearman. Wes, how are you this afternoon?
Yeah, I'm decent. I'm still catching up a little bit of sleep from the Ashes. 3 a.m. starts are not ideal, but yeah, at the end of a quite extraordinary F1 season, and yeah, we'll miss it, but hopefully things will stay. I wouldn't say stay the same, but for 2022, but hopefully we still have the same level of action and excitement for next year. But yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you. Yep, very excited. And I'm very happy to have watched the 2021 season. So this episode is going to be different. We have a season review, but we also have multiple. We're going to have two multiple choice questions. Will be split into two parts. So the first half of the season, and then the second half of the season, with a brief winter break in between. And we'll also be giving our ratings for each of the races. So we'll start off with Bahrain, and then finishing with Hungary, and then Belgium to Abu Dhabi. You get what I mean. So let's start off with the first one. Let's start off with Bahrain, shall we? First race of the season, testing's done. We're getting into it. You know, there are some new players into F1 with AlphaTauri's Yuki Tsunoda and Haas. The Haas team have a new pairing of Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher, the son of the great Michael Schumacher. And well, the race. What did you make of the race, if you can remember
I'd
it?
I'd say it was. I know it seems like ages ago now. Since what, about April, March was it? When
March.
Bahrain kicked the season off, and I'd say it was a good benchmark race for how the season would unfold. Because I suppose in a way it sort of set the tone for the season, where
Yeah.
I think Hamilton pretty much dominated most of the race, and then Verstappen was just about catching him towards the end, and then they got a 5 second penalty with a few laps to go, and yeah, Hamilton obviously won the race, and uh, I wouldn't say got pole because that's one of the questions I've got for you. Yeah, I'd say overall it was a pretty good start to the season.
Um. Also, there were some new faces as mentioned because there were new faces with Yuki Tsunoda, Japanese driver, who is in fact the first Japanese driver to grace F1 since Kazumi Kobayashi. That's history made there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a Japanese driver on the F1 grid. As you say, Kamui Kobayashi, I think, left F1 in 2014 when he was racing for Caterham, I believe. Yeah, it's a shame that Tsunoda hasn't had a home Grand Prix yet, a Japanese Grand Prix. Um, so I can't remember if Latifi and Stroll have had home Grand Prix as well. I think they might have done in 2019, but yeah, to not have a home race is, I mean, every driver wants to race in their own country among their home fans, and
Mm.
I think a lot of the drivers. I mean, I watched the sort of F1 predictions reveal video on YouTube, and I think a few. Sebastian Vettel was another one who basically said that they wanted to go to Japan for the fans there. They'll wear these like stupid hats. I think some of the Honda fans there have like a Red Bull wing as a hat with just Honda Honda written on the back of them.
Mm.
And it's yeah, and Suzuka as well. Brilliant track. I love Suzuka. So yeah, but Sonoda, a good end to the season, I think, for Sonoda. Struggled a little bit at the start. Got points in his first race, decent, but struggled a little bit. His immaturity showed, I think, both on the track and on the radio. Swearing quite a lot, sort of blaming other people for mistakes that he made, that sort of stuff. But
The media,
overall, it's
media interviews.
yeah, yeah, definitely, and yeah, sort of throwing AlphaTauri under the bus a bit as well in some of the stuff he said. But yeah, over, I think he matured a bit towards the end of the season. Drove pretty well, got P4, and he just got P4 in Abu Dhabi. Could have snuck third off Carlos Sainz if it was about half a second, I think. Um, yeah, I'd say overall a decent start to Tsunoda's F1 career.
Indeed, indeed. And so the race itself, Hamilton, Verstappen, as you said, it pretty much set the tone for the race, or for the season rather. And Hamilton plus track limits equals FIA drama with track limits.
That's one of the questions I've got for you on Bahrain,
Go
actually.
on, take it away then. What do you have
Okay,
for
so
us?
the question I've got for the first one is, how many times did Lewis Hamilton exceed track limits at turn 4 during the race? Was it 28 times, 29 times, or 30 times?
29?
It was a lot. Is that your final answer? 29
Indeed,
times.
yes. 29
You are
times.
correct. It was indeed 29 times. Over the course of a 50 odd lap race, 60 lap race, that's a lot. That's over half the race, pretty much, or roughly half the race.
Does it
And
call
he didn't
into
get pitted.
question uh the FIA's rules as to track limits, what you like drivers getting, you know, times deleted and stuff like that?
Most definitely. I mean, at Abu Dhabi, I think they said that the track limits that they would use are the white lines on the track. You have in Abu Dhabi, you have the sort of white lines and the blue sort of runoff areas. They were the track limits, and the white lines on a racetrack, they are the track limits. So I don't get why they had this sort of leniency with turn 4 in the race as opposed to qualifying, where, as you say, they were deleting lap times because of drivers exceeding track limits at turn 4. Why couldn't they have stuck with that for the race? And I suppose looking back now, that decision was one of perhaps several decisions that Massey and the FIA got wrong over the course of the season, which I'm sure we'll come on to later and in part 2 as well.
Indeed, indeed. And Hamilton started the race on pole and in fact won the race with Verstappen in second. So it was a brilliant. It was a okay race to set the tone, kick off the season. I think rating it out of 10, I would say 7 out of 10. Is that
Yeah,
sensible enough?
I've gone with 7 as well. I think it was a good start, but we didn't really have anything to compare it to back then. But I thought, well, with the strategy involved and is Verstappen going to reel in Hamilton towards the end, and that sort of little bit of tension, I suppose, sort of gave us a decent start to the season and something to look forward to.
Indeed, indeed. So Bahrain was the curtain raiser for the F1 season. Hamilton, first win on the board. Next up, we have Italy, the Emilia Romagna. And well, qualifying, it was, if I was to describe qualifying, it was rather, if you're a McLaren fan, actually, you would have been excited for this because Lando Norris did he did absolutely brilliant in qualifying, only to have his time deleted for track limits at turn 9. It called into track limits again. You know, I don't know. What was your thoughts on it when it happened?
I suppose if you have awful wheels off the track, then you are exceeding track limits. But yeah, I think Norris was on sort of on the way to starting P2 on the front row. Yeah, I was watching the highlights back and then the sort of best of the team radio back as well before coming on air. And yeah, he was just saying, just basically apologising to his team. But I suppose in the end, did it matter too much? Because he did get a third place at Imola. So I suppose could he have got second or perhaps the race win if he started on that front row? Maybe potentially, but I think Verstappen just had the pace that weekend in the wet, which I think does slightly favour Red Bull more than Mercedes. Yeah, it was a good start for McLaren, and at the whole sort of first half of the season, McLaren were pretty strong. I mean, Norris was sitting in P4 in the drivers' championship for quite a long way into the season, until sort of the back end of of the season until Bottas sort of took him over, sort of winning the race at Turkey, Bottas, and then obviously Lando slipped back down into sixth in in the drivers after Carlos Sainz sort of jumped to him in the last race or two. So yeah, definitely a strong start for McLaren in Imola, and a strong start to the season. And as a McLaren fan, I know YouTube viewers will see my background is probably not probably their best moment, easily their best moment of the year at Monza. But yeah, McLaren overall perhaps might be a little bit disappointed with how the season went, given I think they were best of the rest last year, if all racing point, third or fourth, and now dropped down to, well, they're still fourth, but behind Ferrari, and they would have wanted to win that battle with Ferrari for sure.
And the race was, it had some drama to it. We like to see, well, we like to see drama, we like to see racing. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull making his debut for new team. He was hit with a 10-second penalty whilst the safety car was in action. Good call, right call.
I think so. I mean, he went off the track, and then two drivers overtook him. I can't quite remember who now. I think there was a McLaren and an AlphaTauri. I can't remember which. And then he just thought, right, it's a safety car. I need to get my position back. I think it was just a sort of a mind blank moment from Perez, where he thought he was entitled to sort of keep his position before he went off track, but that's not the case. And yeah, rightly so, he got handed the penalty because it was a clear breach of the rules.
You can't do that,
Exactly.
especially when the safety car is in action. It's been deployed. Well, I think
exactly, as I say.
Yeah, I think the big standout moment of that Grand Prix was the crash between George Russell in the Williams and Valtteri Bottas of Mercedes. They crashed at turn 8 of the Varante-Alta. So
are you sure? That's not what I've got on my questions.
No?
No.
Correct me. Go on.
Well, I've got the options are for that crash: Tamburello, which is turn 2 to 4; Villeneuve, turn 5 to 6; or Tosa, which is turn 7.
And well, we could rule out Alta then, because it's not on there. It's not
Variante-Alta.
Tosa?
No.
Tamburello.
Tamburello, yeah. It was just after the start finish line. Yeah, Bottas sort of moved to the right a little bit, but Russell got on the grass, lit up the rears, and then just lost control of the car. So for me, it's Russell's fault, and I don't like how he handled that situation, George Russell, blaming Bottas essentially when neither of them had really seen the footage at that stage. And he goes over to Bottas, who's still in the car. Remember, at this point, he's still in the gravel, still in the car, and then just goes over and punches him on the helmet. But again, immaturity a bit from George Russell there, and hopefully he's learned from that. I like to say he has learned from that, and yeah, hopefully he won't be like that next year for Mercedes, because I don't think Mercedes will tolerate that as much as Williams, really.
Indeed, yeah. Max Verstappen ended his Italian curse, I should say. He's never won an Italian Grand Prix in his career. I think coming into this Italian race, in 4 attempts, I think he's only ever finished on a podium 2 times in Italy. But at the Emilia Romagna, Imola, he broke that curse and won the race.
Yeah, as you say, and I mean, he started, I think, P3, qualified P3, and took the lead at the first corner, sort of pushed Hamilton wide at Tamburello a little bit, essentially shoving Hamilton over the curves. Hamilton got a bit of a bumpy ride at Tamburello, but I suppose that's racing. I suppose at the end of the day, he pushed someone a little bit wide. I think Hamilton just about stayed on track. No penalty for Verstappen, and yeah, as you say, sort of lifted his Italian Grand Prix curse. He had not had a good run in Italy at all. I think he DNF'd a couple of times as well in Italy. So yeah, for him to get the win, and at that point 1-1 in the championship. 1 win to Hamilton, one win to Verstappen.
Indeed. How would you rate the race? How would you rate the race then, out of 10?
Again, I've gone a 7 out of 10. Just 'cause it had, I suppose, a little bit of everything. If like, I mean, the strategy-wise, it wasn't as sort of as a strategic battle compared to Bahrain. But you had Verstappen taking the lead from P3. You had the crash between Bottas and Russell. There was Lewis Hamilton going off into the gravel at one point and then reversing back out onto the track. And of course, Lando Norris P3 to top it all off.
Yeah. Yep. I have to agree with you there. 7 out of 10. Yeah, exactly what you said. It had a bit of everything. It had drama. It had a McLaren on the podium. And yeah, 7 out of 10 for the race in Imola. So round 3, we're off to Portugal. For the second,
this one because I don't remember anything about it at all. Really.
Sorry,
I don't remember much about Portugal at all. I just remember it was a pretty dull race.
that's what I've got on my notes, to be
Nothing
honest.
really stands out.
If
Nothing really
anything,
stands out
nothing
from
really
Portugal.
stood out. But yeah, nothing really stood out for Portugal.
The only questions I've got for Portugal, just because I can't remember any drama happening whatsoever, are who took pole and who took fastest lap. Do you want your options?
For fastest lap?
Valtteri Bottas, yeah. Well, for both of them. They're the same options for both questions. They're Valtteri Bottas, Sergio Perez, or Max Verstappen. So who took pole? Bottas, Perez, Verstappen.
Bottas, Perez, Verstappen, Portugal. Verstappen?
No.
Valtteri Bottas then, because I couldn't see Perez doing it.
Valtteri Bottas got pole, and what about fastest lap? Bottas, Perez, Verstappen again.
Bottas.
Yeah, Bottas, double whammy. Pole, fastest lap, but finished the race in third, I think, behind Hamilton and Verstappen.
So from Portugal, we go to Spain.
Actually, what did you rate the Portugal race first before we move on to Spain? Nothing really happened.
My initial thought would be 5 out of 10.
5, that's generous, I think. 5 is very generous.
But
I've gone 2.
Oh.
I've gone 2 out of 10.
Oh.
I mean that could be harsh. 5 could be.
I thought no, like you said, 5 is I think I'm being too generous here with a 5 out of 10. But from the way I saw it, I thought, meh, nothing really happened.
It was very meh. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing really happened there. So however, no, yeah, sorry, my bad. But yeah, Portugal, 5 out of 10. It was all right. It was okay. It was
all right, yeah.
Yeah. Spanish Grand Prix then. Spanish Grand Prix. Actually, we'll come with a few facts, actually, or just one. Lewis Hamilton, 100 F1 poles. That's the statement. Lewis Hamilton, 100 F1 poles.
It's just ridiculous, isn't it? I can't remember who's in second, but they wouldn't be close to Hamilton, not by a long shot. And again, it just shows what a quality driver Hamilton is, what a quality car, Mercedes, what a quality team. Just everything around Hamilton and Mercedes just clicks so well.
The GOAT of F1.
100 poles and obviously later on in the season 100 race wins as well. Just remarkable.
Do you think anyone else will ever get 100 F1 poles in his career? Well,
no chance. No chance. Unless Verstappen keeps racing for another 20 years, which, I mean, it could be a possibility. It was, 24 now?
24, yeah.
So, I mean, if he races until the age of Kimi, who is what, 42, I think.
Yeah.
Alonso's 40, I think Kimi's 42. Unless Verstappen has a race-winning car, like a competitive car like this year's Red Bull, I don't see anyone getting close to 100 poles or 100 race wins for that matter. I think Hamilton, he's broken so many records, and as he continues to extend those records for as long as he's racing, I don't think. I mean, Hamilton could have another 2-3 years of his F1 career left. I mean, that could be famous last words. I mean, because I remember him saying at Abu Dhabi, he said, "We'll see about next year," not "I will see you next year." He said, "We will see about next year." So I think there's some uh, dispute over whether he'll continue F1. I think he will. Yeah, if Hamilton keeps racing, which, as I say, I think he will, then those records are only going to go up and up and up, and we could be sitting here in 2 years' time saying, will anyone ever beat Hamilton's 120 pole record, 120 race wins, something like that?
Mm.
So I don't think anyone will ever beat Hamilton's records, any of
Excuse
them,
me.
to be honest.
Yeah. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc Ferrari's Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. They were. How would you rate their race in Spain? I didn't pay too much attention to it, but I thought they were okay. Would you say it would have been the start of a? I don't know. Would you think Spain would have been the start of their improvement to the season or not?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, Charlotte, this is one of my questions, by the way. Where's Charlotte? Or not where Charles Leclerc finished, but who finished best of the rest? not Mercedes or Red Bull. um,
Ferrari.
well, it was Charles Leclerc in P4. So then, yeah, Carlos Sainz P7 as well. So, yeah, a decent result, you have to say, for Ferrari, given their struggles of the previous year. So to get a P4, it's almost like a win to them in a way, because Mercedes and Red Bull were just a league ahead of everyone. I mean, we constantly saw Hamilton and Verstappen finishing 20 odd seconds, 30 seconds ahead of everyone else in the pack. So for Ferrari to get a P4 in the fourth race of the season, count that as a win for them.
Indeed, and yeah, we've touched on Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, so that was the Spanish Grand Prix. Five races in. Five? No, four races. Sorry, four races.
Race rating?
Mm,
What do you think?
Spanish Grand Prix.
There was a bit of drama at the end where it was like, always, will Hamilton reel in Verstappen? Will Verstappen's tyres last? Will Verstappen be able to pull off the one stop, Hamilton doing the two stop? What did you make of it? Out of 10.
6.
I think that's probably
6
fair.
out of 10.
I've gone 6 as well.
I
I
thought
think Spanish Grand Prix of late haven't been the most interesting. They've been
no.
pretty dull. But I think this one just gave us a bit of strategy, a bit of drama, just something to cling on to keep us watching.
So, fancy a trip to Monaco?
Not really, no. Well, not to watch an F1 race, that's for sure. It's like watching paint dry.
So Monaco then, qualifying was an eye opener actually, because would you believe me if Daniel, well, not that you wouldn't, but Alpine's Fernando Alonso started P17, Ricciardo P12 out of Q2.
Oh, to have names like that dropping out in Q2. I mean, Alonso 17, that's Q1. I think so. Yeah, not a good result in qualifying for Alonso at all. And yeah, Ricciardo would have wanted more at Monaco, especially being a former Grand Prix winner, Monaco Grand Prix winner with Red Bull a few years ago. He would have wanted more to. But then I suppose at that point in the season, Ricciardo is still getting used to the new McLaren. Worth mentioning McLaren's livery for Monaco, the golf-inspired livery, the sort of duck egg blue, if you like, and the orange looked absolutely fantastic. Would love to see it again next year.
I loved that livery. I think
It was brilliant.
I think it was better than the Red Bull livery in Russia.
I can't remember the Red Bull livery in Russia.
White. No, was it Turkey?
It was Turkey. They had the
Turkey,
special
sorry.
livery, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, sorry. White
No, but I think,
livery.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it was the best sort of one-off livery.
one-off livery.
If you like, I know they changed it slightly for Abu Dhabi. They had a bit more colour to it, I think, somewhere, a few more stripes or whatever. But yeah, that Gulf livery, easily the best sort of alternate one-off livery of the season. I know there aren't too many to choose from. I know Red Bull had that special livery. Alfa Romeo had a special livery, I think, for Monza. I think there's a couple more in there somewhere. Obviously, McLaren's slight changes in Abu Dhabi, but nothing beats a Gulf livery, really. If it's done well, like it was at Monaco, then top of the charts for liveries, I think.
Now, if you're Charles Leclerc, you want to impress your home crowd. You want to impress everyone in Monaco. However, you're set for pole. You pull off a you pull off a pole setting lap, but then it all comes crumbling down in the walls, off the curb, in the walls, in the barriers, and Charles Leclerc crashes his car, and which ultimately rules him out of the race, and he doesn't start. That was
Yeah,
a shocker.
it was bittersweet, I think, for Charles Leclerc because he got pole, which have all the euphoria about getting pole at Monaco, pole for his home Grand Prix. Obviously, Leclerc being Monegasque. And then you have that sort of heartbreak, if you like, of, as you say, crashing into the wall, I think just after the swimming pool section. I can't quite remember. Wrecking the gearbox and then not being able to start the race. It's just, yeah, I feel for Charles Leclerc at that point because he put in such a stellar lap to get pole, to beat both Mercedes, both Red Bulls, beat the McLarens, beat his teammate Carlos Sainz. So for him to not start the race, not have the chance of winning his home Grand Prix for Ferrari, just heartbreak. Heartbreak for him. Really felt for him that weekend.
And that means we had no one on pole when starting the race. We were one driver down, and so it was Max Verstappen and Valtteri Bottas closest to the start line, and lights went out, and great start from Verstappen leading into the race.
So I don't really remember much. I don't remember much about that race, to be honest, besides Bottas's pit stop and who was it? Vettel and Gasly overtaking each other. Then we had Stroll's graphic come up on the screen to show a replay of him going over some curves for the one bit of action we had in the race. I just thought, no, let's cut to Stroll just bouncing over some curves, and it was just a dull race. And I just
Lewis
don't know what to say.
Hamilton struggled as well, I believe.
Yeah, Hamilton struggled. I think he finished like P5 or P7, something like that. He had a really poor weekend in Monaco. Again, didn't gain any places, didn't lose any places because that's just Monaco. These cars can't overtake at Monaco.
Yeah.
I'll continue saying that until they make changes or get rid of it on the calendar. It would be interesting to see how next year's cars fare. Don't know if they made them any wider. I doubt it. I doubt if they've made them any narrower either. But for Monaco to be the sort of crown jewel in F1, if you like, and it's in a way it's good to watch because you've got all the glitz and the glamour, you've got the harbour, the speedboats, etc., the casino, what have you, and at the same time, it's just a completely dull spectacle. It's not there for the racing at all. It's not a racetrack. It's just it's streets, it's normal roads that they just drive on. They can't overtake at all. I mean, if you want a racetrack, you need to have overtaking, and Monaco just doesn't have that, in my opinion.
No. If you were to scrap it off if you were to take it off next year's calendar, what would you replace it with?
I can't remember if we got a German Grand Prix on the
Oh, we haven't
2022
had Germany
calendar, but
since
Germany, either
2014.
Nürburgring or Hockenheim.
Yeah.
Oh, we had Germany a couple of years ago. I think Hockenheim returned for a few years, but yeah, before it came back recently, then yeah, we had a few years where there was no German Grand Prix, which is interesting. I think, yeah, one of the German tracks, Hockenheim or Nürburgring, or potentially Turkey.
Yeah.
Well, again, as I said a few times on this podcast, Killarney in South Africa. It's the one continent, pretty much the one continent that F1 doesn't race on.
World.
To get rid of a whole entire continent from your world championship. I mean, they race in Europe, they race in Asia, they race in Oceania and Australia, they race in North America, South America. Obviously, just forgetting about Antarctica because it'd be pretty impossible to race there.
Yeah.
Africa's the one continent they don't race on, and yeah, I think soon, or sooner rather than later, F1 should have a race at Killarney in South Africa, or another racetrack in Africa, wherever it may be. And I'm not an expert on African tracks, but somewhere in Africa, then there needs to be an F1 race. I mean, Formula E went to Marrakesh in Morocco. Again, street circuit, but that sort of Formula E is not necessarily USP, but they're used to racing on street circuits, whereas F1, I think, need to go to more purpose-built racetracks, not just street circuits like Baku, Monaco, Jeddah, etc., etc.
Yeah. Yeah. And well, because you said you couldn't remember much of Monaco, other than Valtteri Bottas' bad pit stop.
Do you want a question on Bottas's pit stop?
Go
That's
on.
one of the two I had. So, how long was his pit stop, including the time back at the garage trying to get the wheel off? Was it 21 hours, 32 hours, or 43 hours to get the wheel off?
Oh, blimey. Uh,
It was a long time.
oh gosh.
21, 32, 43 hours.
The second one.
32.
32, yeah. 32 hours.
Longer than that. It was 43 hours.
43 hours.
Bottas pulled into the pits to Mercedes managing to get the tyre off. I can't remember how they did it again, but they said they essentially just sort of scrubbed off with the gun sort of worn down at the wheel nut, so they couldn't grip onto it. They just couldn't get. I can't remember which tire it was. I think it was the front right or the front left.
right,
It was
yeah.
one of the front tires. Yeah, I don't know how they managed to get that off in the end. Someone with vast more technical and engineering knowledge than me will be able to tell us. But yeah, 43. I mean, to go out of a race when you're running P2 quite comfortably in P2, podium at Monaco, brilliant, great, what every F1 driver dreams of, and then to have that taken away from you by that's something that's not really anyone's fault either. You can't blame anyone for that pit stop.
Can't blame the mechanics.
No, exactly. So for him to be taken out of the Grand Prix like that is cruel for Bottas, and
it's quite unusual as well, because I don't remember, or I've not come across that kind of situation before, or heard of that situation before.
Yeah, I haven't either, really. And yeah, again, just felt sorry for Bottas. As I say, second at Monaco would have been brilliant, a great result for him. But yeah, to be taken out of the race by one tyre failing to cooperate is pretty harsh. And yeah, I feel for Bottas there.
But at least they were able to remove it eventually. That's the good
eventually.
thing. Eventually. Sebastian Vettel had a pretty good performance, I thought. 5th place in Aston Martin. New team. Brilliant.
Yeah, decent result for Vettel, given how poor I suppose Aston Martin were over the course of the season, finishing 7th in the constructors. Again, for him to get P5, I've said before, almost like a win for Aston Martin. Beat Lewis Hamilton, beat Pierre Gasly, beat his teammate Stroll, beat Daniel Ricciardo. A lot of drivers who you would expect to finish fairly regularly in the points, especially Ricciardo. And to beat Hamilton, I mean, Hamilton had a shocker at Monaco, as we've said, P7. And yeah, not well, I was going to say not too far behind Sergio Perez, but he was 30 odd seconds behind Perez. Yeah, P5 for Vettel in Aston Martin. Yeah, great result.
And right, Valtteri Bottas? No, Max Verstappen. He won the Monaco Grand Prix for the first time in his career. Brilliant. And he led the championship at that point with 105 to Hamilton's 104. So 4 points ahead after 5 races. At this point, at this point, where is your what? Oh, so where was your head at this point in terms of the season? Is it was this the okay? We're gonna have a real battle on our hands, or do we have to wait? Did we have to wait a few more races?
I think we still had to wait a few more races because only 5 races into a 22 race season is still fairly early on, and I thought we could say, oh, it's probably one of the few times that Hamilton has not been ahead in the championship for quite some time, probably since 2016, when Rosberg had more points than him in the championship. But I think at that point it was still too close to call. But I think with the races before, obviously Spain, we had the little bit of strategy battle between them. Portugal, they finished first and second. Imola first and second. Bahrain first and second. So I think if Hamilton had a decent qualifying, then Hamilton would have still led the championship at the end of Monaco. But at that point, I think it was still too close to call as to whether we would to have a proper championship battle on our hands. Certainly not one that it turned out to be.
Yeah, and so that was Monaco. How would you rate Monaco then?
2
Considering
out of 10,
Monaco is
easy.
not, you can't overtake.
Easily a 2 out of 10.
Yeah.
As bad as Portugal. I mean, the only real drama to it was Bottas's pit stop. And if a pit stop is the most dramatic thing in the race, then it's not really a good race. I don't think.
I'm gonna have to. I agree with you on that one. 2 out of 10. I thought it was poor. I thought
It
it
was
was
a shocker.
poor.
Yeah, I think one of the more boring Monaco Grand Prix in recent years.
If I could, I would write a letter to the FIA and tell them to remove the Monaco Grand Prix for next year and replace it. That's what I would do because yeah, like you said, it was boring. It was, yeah. Oh, sorry. Our podium on with
Oh yeah,
Monaco. Our podium.
it was it the youngest podium ever? I think Verstappen, Sainz, and Norris, all
Yeah.
drivers in their early 20s. Can't remember how old Carlos Sainz is. I think Sainz is probably the oldest out of the 3 of them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the youngest podium, and it's great to see Lando and Carlos back on the podium together. Lando on the podium. And again, that wouldn't have happened if not for Bottas's pit stop. So this all boils down to Bottas's 43-hour pit stop.
So Monaco, 2 out of 10. Agree?
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that one.
Azerbaijan, 6 races in. Again, qualifying, turn 15 in Baku was the the warning points, and a few drivers had some crashes there. Ricciardo, Stroll, Giovinazzi. A lot of drivers struggled in Baku, both qualifying and the race.
Yeah, I remember just seeing just replays of just constantly hearing about drivers at turn 15 just hitting the wall, and you think, really, that many drivers making the same mistake at one corner? And I don't know what happened really, whether it was the tires, whether it was a lack of grip or whatever. I just don't know whether drivers trying to push too hard. But you'd think after a couple of people crash into it, I think there was 4 or 5, must have been over the course of the weekend, that some of the drivers would sort of take it not necessarily easy into turn 15, but just relax a little bit going into that corner, save the tyres, save the risk, I suppose, of going into the wall. But yeah, it was a strange one. I think the whole Azerbaijan Grand Prix again. When it debuted in 2016, everyone was like, "Oh, it's going to be another dull track snooze fest, Monaco version 2 or something." But again, this year it just proved to be the complete opposite of that, given what happened towards the back end of the race.
Chaotic is how I would describe Azerbaijan
Mm.
this season.
Yeah,
Chaotic
definitely.
race. Because you've got debris flying everywhere. Lance Stroll suffered a heavy crash. And if you thought one was enough, two, Max Verstappen, championship leader, he went out as well, 200 miles per hour.
Yeah, lucky Max Verstappen escaped that without too many injuries, I think,
Mm.
because if he veered off to the left instead of to the right, he could have gone into the concrete pit wall pretty much head on, which would have at least severely injured him, if not killed him potentially. We could have been sitting here and sitting at the end of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, losing one of the greatest young talents that's ever graced Formula One. And I suppose luckily, in a way, he veered off to the right, hit the sort of wall that wasn't perpendicular to his car, and but two tire blowouts when there was no warning of them whatsoever from Pirelli, from the radio, from the drivers. I mean, Pirelli said that the tires were fine, I think, after an investigation, but evidently the tires weren't fine. Stuff like that shouldn't really be happening because the tires weren't that old. I suppose they were worn, yes, but they would have easily made it to the end of the Grand Prix. I mean, pretty much every other driver did, besides Verstappen and Stroll. So I suppose in a way it was kind of a good thing that Verstappen had to blow up because we got a more interesting sort of final lap. But to be in that, I wouldn't want to be in Verstappen's position at that point, going 200 miles an hour down one of the longest straights in F1. To have your tires just blow out, you go veering off into a wall. Yeah, scary stuff.
And so we had a red flag, race restart, no Verstappen, he's out. So race restart, and I think this was what I don't know how to describe it, but it was an eye opener. You've got Perez and Hamilton front row. Hamilton's wheels start smoking.
I suppose, given what happened next with Hamilton going off into the escape road, where he had the so-called magic button on, whether he just accidentally tapped it or whatever. Yeah, to see just everyone lining up on the start, and then you just see Hamilton in second with his tires just, as I say, just smoking or steam coming off or something. It was just, yeah, strange, I think. And then obviously Hamilton just went straight on into turn one. And then, do you want to guess where he finished? I've got your options. Was it 10th, 13th, or 15th? Where did Hamilton finish?
Definitely not in the points. So ruling out 10th place.
13th, 13th, or 15th?
15th.
15th is correct. Yeah, finished behind Nikita Mazepin. Mazepin finished
Really?
14th. I think the only driver behind him was Mick Schumacher. I'll have to double check that, but yeah, Nikita Mazepin beat a seven-time world champion. It was the one and only time. I suppose, well, it wasn't the one and only time, given Hamilton's DNF in Honda as well. But yeah, a shocker again for Hamilton. It's Azerbaijan. I suppose a little bit unlucky, but I suppose at the end of the day, neither driver scored points, Verstappen or Hamilton. So it kept the championship battle. I wouldn't say alive. It was alive throughout the whole season, but it didn't really make a difference to the championship, where it would have been a little bit unfair, certainly from a Red Bull point of view, if Verstappen crashed out through something not his fault and Hamilton cruised home to a P2 or even a race win. get either 18 or 25 points ahead of Verstappen, which it certainly would have made things interesting given how the
It
rest of the
would.
season panned out.
But we did have something interesting in Baku with an a very interesting podium,
An
one that
interesting
wasn't
podium, yeah.
Hamilton, Bottas, or Verstappen.
It wasn't a Hamver bot,
Nope.
as we're so used to seeing. Now, again, the second question I've got on Azerbaijan is on the podium, and obviously Perez won his first race win for Red Bull. Sebastian Vettel was second, but who finished third? Is it Pierre Gasly, Lance Stroll? I'll put Sebastian Vettel, even though I just told you he's second. So Gasly or Stroll? Who finished third?
Pierre Gasly in the
It was Pierre
AlphaTauri.
Gasly, yeah. I can't remember where Stroll finished now, but I think it was quite far down. I'll have to just double check. Stroll. I don't know why I put Stroll when he DNF'd. That was a bit of
Oh,
an open
Wes.
goal, that question. Now looking back at it. Oh dear.
So,
Anyway, race rating for Azerbaijan.
mm, a lot of drama.
There was a lot of drama, yeah.
Um, I think I think the ratings so far have been very consistent. I'm gonna say 6 or 7. I'm not really sure on this one. I would say I'll say
Yeah,
6.
I'm not sure either. I'm gonna give it a 7.
7. Why
Just
is
because I think for a lot of the race it was fairly straightforward Baku, but as we've seen with Baku for the last 3 or 4 years, it always throws up something.
yeah.
And yeah, the drama with the 2 tyre failures and the red flag and the race restart, essentially a 1 lap sprint, decided the race. Um, yeah, I can't quite give it an 8 because I mean, to have 2 tyre failures caused essentially for no reason. You have to have a look at that, I suppose, and say why those tyre failures happen. But yeah, but there was drama and there was good hard racing as well. So I think a 7 is fair. I think.
Yeah. 6 out of 10. I thought it wasn't dull. There was a lot of drama, everything.
Mm.
I just thought with what you said, it was yeah, I don't know. 6 out of 10 for me. It wasn't as exciting. It wasn't,
Mm.
you know, like an edge of your seat moment. Like
Yeah,
there were crashes. You're not gonna, you know, be excited for a crash. So like I just thought 6 out of 10. It was a average, sensible race.
yeah, I agree with you on that.
So round 7, if you please.
Round 7, the French Grand Prix. Again, everyone went into this one thinking, "I'll probably be another snooze fest like it was the year before in 2020." Not a lot really happened, but yeah, it turned out to be an all right race, sort of a reverse of Spain, if you like, where this time Hamilton went on the 1 stopper, Verstappen did the 2 stopper, and okay, it was a similar thing where it was could Verstappen reel in Hamilton on a new set of tyres, and not Verstappen, could Hamilton hold off for the race when could Bottas defend from both of the Red Bull drivers, and it turned out to be an all right race. I think in the end, I mean, not a lot really happened, I suppose, until the end. Sort of similar to Spain in a way, where obviously the strategy battle won't play out until the dying laps of the race. So, I do have one question for you on it, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be surprised if if you get this. But which team rounded out the points scoring positions in ninth and 10th? So which team finished ninth and 10th? Was it Alpine, Aston Martin, or Alpha Tauri
In the French Grand Prix.
in the French Grand Prix? Yeah.
To be honest, I've forgotten the French Grand Prix. So if I do get this right, I'll
To
be
be honest, I couldn't remember much besides obviously the finish
It-
of
before
the
I
last
answer
few
the
laps of the race.
question, is this the race where Bottas was arguing with his radio about a 2-stop strategy?
I think so. I think it was. Yeah, Bottas. Yeah, that's right. Because Bottas's tyres were completely shot at the end of the race, and
Yeah.
that's why he had such trouble defending from Verstappen and Perez. And I think he came over the radio after one of the Red Bull drivers overtook us that basically said, "I told you so" to Mercedes.
I thought that was very
Um,
funny.
Yeah, okay, feel for Bottas because he's in a difficult position there. He's not on the strategy he wants, and he has to defend from two Red Bull drivers on fresh tyres when his tyres are completely dead. Not quite off the cliff, but not far from it. So, people say, "Oh, Bottas is a terrible defensive driver." Certainly at the French Grand Prix, he didn't defend very well at all. But to not be on the strategy you want, to be on completely worn, whatever tyres he was on, medium or hard, I can't remember. It's a tricky situation for Bottas, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 9th and 10th. Which cars finished 9th and 10th? Alpine, Aston Martin, AlphaTauri.
French Grand Prix. I'm gonna take a guess. Alpine?
Right.
Really?
Aston Martin. Aston Martin finished 9th and 10th.
Oh wow.
I can't remember where Alpine finished actually, nor AlphaTauri, but I just thought I couldn't really think of many questions for France because again, it wasn't the most exciting race besides the last sort of 5-10 laps. I mean, the other question was who had the fastest pit stop? Was it Verstappen, Perez, or Russell?
Russell?
Yeah, Williams. Williams quick. This is including the pit lane time, by the way, so it's around about 30 seconds.
It takes 21 seconds to go into the pits and do a pit stop with it. Oh, I'm getting confused.
You don't have to answer. We can move on.
Williams.
No, Perez for Red Bull. Sub 30 seconds, 29.682.
Damn.
The other two were just over 30 seconds. But yeah,
Okay.
we get a race rating for the French Grand Prix. I know you can't remember much about it. I suppose the fact that you can't remember much about it says that it wasn't that interesting. That interesting of a race.
2 out of 10. Because I can't remember it. Because I can't remember it.
That's fair. If you can't remember much about it, then it obviously wasn't. I think I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay.
Just to, again, similar to Spain, that slight strategic battle between Mercedes and Red Bull. Verstappen not necessarily stealing the win from Hamilton, but yeah, again, Red Bull outfought Mercedes, whereas Mercedes outfought Red Bull in Spain. So a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10.
And I suppose the next two, both in Austria, the Styrian Grand Prix and the Austrian Grand Prix, again, not a lot really happened. It was sort of a quiet period of the season because if you're at Austria in 2020, we had, I think Leclerc won the first race of the season last year with Norris on the podium.
On the podium,
I can't remember who got the other podium. I think the second race was a bit more straightforward last year, but yeah, these two races in Styria and Austria, I think both fairly similar. Verstappen dominated pretty much the whole of the two race weekends.
Brilliant.
I suppose the Austrian Grand Prix was a little bit more, I wouldn't say spicy, but a little bit different to the first one because do you want to guess the Verstappen's margin of victory in the first race at Styria? Was it 35 seconds, 25 seconds, or 15 seconds? Because it was a long way back from Hamilton.
Considering that Austria is quite a small track, I don't know if that plays into it. But what are the options?
35, 25, or 15 seconds. You finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton. I think it was Lewis Hamilton in second, I'm pretty sure.
One more time.
35, 25, 15.
25 seconds.
No, more than that. 35 seconds from Hamilton.
That's a very long
Verstappen crossing the line to. I'm pretty sure it was Hamilton in second place. I can't see why it wouldn't be.
If that's 35 seconds,
it was
that's like. So at this point, Verstappen's already crossed the line, won the race, and how far was Hamilton to the final corner then?
He was Must have been. I mean, if you think about it, a lap around Austria is just over a minute, around about 1 minute 10. I think so. Verstappen was essentially half a lap quicker than Lewis Hamilton by the end of the race. Again, Verstappen was just so dominant over the course of the two Austrian Grand Prix. And, to win the race by 35 seconds, it was close to 36 seconds, actually, 35.7. But quite a performance from Verstappen. And then so the race after was slightly different in that um, Mercedes didn't start on the front row. Do you want to have Verstappen took pole, but do you want to have a guess at who started second? Was it Perez, Gasly, or Norris?
Are we still in Austria?
This is the second Austrian Grand Prix.
Oh, Perez?
No.
What are the options again? Sorry.
Not Perez, but Gasly or Norris started P2 or qualified P2.
Wow. Gasly's got to be
Lando Norris started P2 for the Austrian Grand Prix.
How? I don't remember that.
I don't remember either, but just looking back at the races and the highlights and stuff, Norris started P2, only 0.048 seconds behind Max Verstappen to claim in pole position.
Wow.
Meanwhile, Hamilton and Bottas started P4 and P5. Perez in third.
Well, that's
and Norris backed that up with a P3 as well in the race on the podium, second podium of the year for Lando Norris, third podium actually. Sorry, forgot about Monaco. With Bottas finishing ahead of Hamilton.
Lando Norris at this point of the season, 8 races in, 9 races in. He's having a brilliant start to the season.
He's having a good time of it.
Yeah,
3 podiums in 9 races for McLaren. Given, they're on the up again. I suppose you could definitely say now, but I don't think many people would have expected Norris to get 3 podiums throughout the whole season, let alone 9 races. And I can't remember if Norris did get it. I say I can't remember if he did get another podium, but then a background, YouTube viewers, podium at Monza, sort of, he did get another podium. But a bit of an interest. I wouldn't say interesting race, but at Austria, but certainly a bit different to the previous race where it was what we're used to. Hamver bot, I think it was, or Hamver per, or the whatever. It's the top 2 teams finishing on the podium essentially. But do you have your race ratings for Styria and Austria? Because for me they're pretty much the same.
I mean, I do. No, do I remember much about Austria? Both races, probably not.
No,
Probably not. So
low.
I think because Verstappen was very dominant in the race. I mean, back-to-back race wins in Austria. Wow. But I'd say, being generous, 5 out of 10.
I've gone 2 for Styria, and 3 for Austria, just because Austria had a slightly different podium.
Okay.
Because it had Norris on there. I think Norris podium deserves an extra point from me.
Yeah. So that's 9 races into the season. Up next is Silverstone.
Great Britain.
Silverstone.
I think this is where the championship properly kicked off.
Yeah.
I think, given the events that unfolded at Silverstone, Copse Corner, lap 1. It was the first sprint race of the season as well.
Yes, sprint
first
racing.
New qualifying that we've seen in Formula 1 for a few years, and I don't remember much about the sprint race. I don't think.
No.
From what I remember, it was very exciting. Same with Monza as well. I think Brazil was the only interesting sprint race for the whole season. Though we've only had 3, but there might be a few more introduced next year. That is just the start of the British Grand Prix. Again, controversy right from the get-go, really. Copse Corner, Hamilton going down the inside. Did he miss the apex on purpose? Was it intentional? Was it just it was on slightly cold tyres? And yeah, the outshot of it, how Verstappen ended up in the wall and essentially lost 25 points that day because Hamilton won the race. I can't remember if he got fast enough as well, but yeah, Hamilton got a penalty. People can debate whether 10 seconds was long enough. Um, I just don't think the stewards could have won really out of that if they penalised Hamilton more or penalised him less. But you say, well, was it a racing incident? Was it Hamilton's fault? There was a lot of debate about whose fault it was, and B, whether the penalty was severe enough or whether it was too severe. So
Yeah. I thought the crash was, I mean, looking at it, it was a heavy crash, huge crash.
yeah,
And it was good to see that Verstappen was okay. He was taken to hospital, check up. It was good he was okay. But didn't like how Hamilton almost got a lot of heat as from the
yeah.
outside, like it wasn't really a nice thing to see or hear about.
I mean, there's no place for hate and abuse in F1 or any aspect of life really. So we sort of just saw recently Nicholas Latifi post something on social media explaining that he received death threats, abuse, etc. for crashing in Abu Dhabi, where for something that you could argue that was his fault, but it's not his fault that the stewards decided what they did in Abu Dhabi. It's just unacceptable that any driver receives hate, death threats, whatever abuse
Yeah.
they get. It's just not right, and something needs to be done. But yeah, that's that's a topic for another day, sadly.
The race in Silverstone, Hamilton won the race. At this point, I believe he's on 98 or 99 race wins in F1. He's close to 100.
He's on 99 race wins, yeah.
99.
Or not, yeah, 99 after winning the. Imagine if he got the 100 at the British Grand Prix, that would have been absolute scenes. It's just a shame he didn't win one of the earlier races of the season. I mean, if he didn't lock up or Azerbaijan, that would have been his 99th, and then he would have come into Britain on 99 race wins, won the race, 100 wins to get your 100th race win, more than anyone else, and probably more than anyone else will ever get in the history of F1.
Yeah,
Your home Grand Prix is won it, what, 8 times, 9 times now? I
9
think the
times
British Grand
now.
Prix 9 times, yeah. What a driver. Just no other words. What a driver.
Oh,
Unbelievable.
we're only gonna have one Lewis Hamilton. I'm so happy that I'm alive to see Lewis Hamilton, racing in F1 and everything that he's doing off the track as well. So it's great to see. Right, how would you rate the race out of 10?
Um, Before I do, can you remember who finished second in the race? This driver led pretty much every lap of the race until the last 2 or 3 laps when Hamilton overtook him at Copse Corner again. Remember who finished second? Do you want options? What are your
Yeah,
options? Was it Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, or Lando Norris?
Carlos
Leclerc,
Sainz,
Sainz, Norris. Right. The other one, other Ferrari driver,
Charles Leclerc.
Charles Leclerc, P2, arguably should have
Hmm.
won. He had engine trouble at one point in the race where I can't remember what happened, but he just lost a bit of power, and I think that eventually led to Hamilton catching up on him and overtaking him at Copse Corner again. I think Hamilton went down the inside again. Leclerc not forced off. I think Leclerc made an error, went wide at Copse. Yeah, sadly for Charles Leclerc, I mean, to win a race for Ferrari this year would have been exceptional because they didn't have the fastest car on the grid, not by some stretch, behind Red Bull and Mercedes. But for that, I mean, we said that what P4 was a win in Spain, so to get an actual race win for Charles Leclerc and Ferrari would have been just something else entirely. And it's still a bit sad that Leclerc didn't win the race, but
Yeah.
yeah, Hamilton to come back to essentially get rid of a 10-second penalty and still win the race is quite something. And it's just a shame he didn't get his 100th race win
Yeah.
at Silverstone.
Yeah. Right. Race rating 7 out of 10. In my view,
I've gone 7 out of 10, yeah,
7 out of
as well.
10. 10 races down, and the highest we have is 7 out of 10.
What's up next?
Does that say something as to how far, like, the season's gone after 10 races? That nothing's been appealing, or what does that say? If our highest rating is 7 out of 10.
I suppose that says that or most of the races have been above average.
Yeah.
Because if you think about in previous years, I think a lot of the races would have been perhaps a 5, maybe a 6, but to get 7, and I've been close to awarding a couple of 8s as well. I suppose it just shows, given how close the championship was as well throughout the whole of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, only rating a race out of 10, you can't really. Should it be a 7? Should it be an 8? That sort of thing. And I suppose the point, if we were rating 2020 or 2019, then I think the races we've rated a 7, like Britain, Baku, etc., might have been a point or 2 lower. So I think giving them a 7, yeah, it might seem harsh. It might seem it's only a 7, but of a season comparatively would have been perhaps a 4 or 5 or a 6. So
Yeah.
I think having most of the races like a 6 or a 7 above average sort of suggested that at that point that we were in for a real ride this season, that this season was going to be, or potentially was going to be at that point in time, a season for the ages. Obviously not quite as exceptional as it, or not quite a unique a season as it turned out to be.
Excuse me. So, round 11, Hungary, Budapest. Budapest?
Yeah,
Budapest, right? Yeah. So, I don't remember much of qualifying. However,
I don't either, actually.
yeah, I don't remember much of qualifying, but the race, I'm just gonna get to the talking point. It was a Alpine themed race.
Special, if you like.
Alpine special. Esteban Ocon. What a racer he is. I think Esteban Ocon is the kind of man, or the kind of F1 driver who, would you say he's one of the most, or one of the underrated drivers in F1? With
I'd probably say so.
Pierre Gasly, you can throw Pierre Gasly into the mix.
Well,
Carlos
I
Sainz.
wouldn't say Gasly's underrated or Sainz, but I'd say Ocon is definitely one of the quieter drivers, one that no one
talks about
too much, if you like. And whereas Gasly and Sainz, I think people talk about them quite a bit. But yeah, Ocon, I don't think anyone expected Alpine to get a race win, or Renault, or whatever, since going back into F1. No one would have expected them to get a race win for another few seasons at least. So for them to get a race win, yeah, it was completely ridiculous circumstances where Bottas went bowling at the start, took out 5 cars, I think. Verstappen had damage. Hamilton sort of sived his way through the pack after being the only driver to start on the race restart, whereas everyone else pitted for new tyres. It's just remarkable that Ocon got a race win, and I mean, he started on pole again for Saudi Arabia after Verstappen got the penalty and dropped back. But yeah, I think Ocon had a pretty good season overall. Got that new contract in France, and I think from there on, we saw a bit of confidence come back into him. He just relaxed a bit more and just eased into his driving. I think that showed in Hungary. Qualifying well, I think. I can't quite remember where he qualified, but I mean, if you get in the race win, then you're doing something right. I mean, as well for Alpine, Alonso, incredible defensive driving
Yeah.
to keep Hamilton off, and one of the best battles of the season, I think, Alonso versus Hamilton, and we had a couple more battles similar to that, most notably Perez versus Hamilton at Abu Dhabi. Yeah, for Alonso, just showing all his experience to keep Hamilton at bay for a good couple of laps. If he hadn't have done that, then Ocon could have been saying goodbye to his first race win, and hopefully he gets a few more.
Yeah. I was that was pretty exciting. Esteban Ocon to lead he led quite early on. I think lap
I think so, yeah.
5.
Something like that, yeah. When Hamilton pitted, which would have been around about lap 3 or 4.
That's a lot of laps, and Esteban Ocon was in there. Alonso, his teammate, Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin as well.
Well,
I mean that
until
was
until after the race where he got disqualified.
oh yeah. Do you want to talk us through that?
Oh yeah, Vettel finished P2, would have been his second place finish for the year,
Podium.
and then he couldn't supply enough fuel in the car. I can't remember however much it was, but he couldn't supply enough fuel for testing. And surely fuel's full, you can test as little as you want, but obviously not according to the FIA rules. And yeah, Vettel was quite sadly disqualified, bumped Hamilton up into second, and Carlos Sainz, I think, got the podium in the end. I think I'll just quickly double check that. I should know it, having done research for all these questions, but yeah, Sainz P3. And so a second podium for Carlos Sainz in the season, to go with Monaco. And I mean, Hamilton coming back from essentially last place, I think it was about 15th or 16th, after he pitted on, as I say, lap 2 or 3, and to come back into second, driving his way throughout pretty much the whole pack. I can't remember if they were on slicks at that point, but I mean, to get back up to second, to gain what, 14 places, something like that.
Yeah.
Remarkable drive, and yeah, Mercedes has got a quick car. Hamilton's a great driver, but to deal with that amount of traffic is something else, really.
So Esteban Ocon, first race win. He got a podium last season in 2020 in Bahrain, I believe. Is it Bahrain?
Do you know what? I can't remember. I can't remember.
It was definitely in the Middle East. He got a second place, I think. But yeah, Esteban Ocon, one of the most underrated drivers in F1. Brilliant to see him and Alonso as well. Brilliant racing from him. How would you rate the race?
Before we go into race ratings, there's one other talking point I just want to mention. That is Williams. Their first points since 2019.
Oh yes.
But how many points did they get? Was it 10, 12, or 14? Both drivers finished inside the points.
10.
Yep, 10 points. I think it was. Let's have a look here. 6 points for Latifi in 7th, and 4 points for Russell in 8th.
Oh,
and
Latifi,
at that point,
place.
Yeah,
wow.
I think Russell had. I can't remember if he had an engine issue or he just had to let one of the other drivers by, whether it was Latifi or someone else. I can't quite remember now, but I think at that point we were just like, Williams is not necessarily back, but they're finding their competitiveness again. And obviously Russell got points later on in the season. Spa, we'll talk about that in part 2. And I think he got a point at Monza, I think, finished 10th in Monza. So Hungary was, I mean, what, 6-7 cars were taken out or DNF. But for Williams to get points, finishing ahead of Alfa Romeo, Mick Schumacher in the Haas, who finished 12th. I suppose there were only sort of 3 non-points paying positions at Hungary, but still Williams double points percent, and it's not like they just scraped into the points either. In 7th and 8th, 10 points overall. Fair play to Williams, and I'm incredibly happy for them being one of my local teams, if you like. That sounds a bit like football, that, or sport of your local team, but they're a half-hour drive away. So for Williams to get 10 points is, brilliant. Great to see.
It's brilliant, yeah. Right, race rating.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I don't think. Well, I've given it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
I don't think I can fault too many things from Hungary in terms of entertainment, how good it was to watch. We had the wet start. Bottas, as I say, went bowling at turn 1, took out a few cars, and then we had Hamilton restart the race all on his own, and whilst everyone else was in the pit. You had Ocon race win, you had Vettel P2 before disqualification, you had Hamilton working his way back up the field, you had the battle with Alonso. It was just an amazing race, and
It had everything.
for me, the best race of the season, I think.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that one. 10 out of 10. I thought it was brilliant. It was such an entertaining race, and that's what we want. We want entertaining racing. Yeah, and someone that is not someone that is not Verstappen or Hamilton on the top step. So here's a question for you, actually. Esteban Ocon, as we've said, is one of the most underrated drivers. Do you see him being in the World Championship picture anytime soon in the next few years?
I don't know. Unless Alpine somehow improve their car so much that they're finishing best of the rest all the time, then I don't think so, because the pace we've seen from Red Bull this year, I think that will translate into next year as well. I know we've got new regulations coming, but the top teams will certainly be able to keep up with the regulation change and maybe find a loophole somewhere, like Braun did in 2009 with double diffuser, etc. But I'd like to see Alpine still fight in the midfield, fight with McLaren, fight with. I mean, I want to see Aston Martin get back up as well. Finish 7th this year, and hopefully they can get back into that proper fight for midfield. AlphaTauri as well. I just want to see good fight, good midfield fighting. So I think as a McLaren fan and fan of both Norris and Ricciardo, the midfield, I suppose, is where I look to for the action in F1. We have action at front of Hamilton, Verstappen race win, etc. I don't think Ocon will win a championship, not for the next few years at least. But he is, I think, a Mercedes development driver. I think he has been on the Mercedes driver program. He sat out 1 year, I think, in 2019. To be sort of Mercedes reserve driver, test driver. So it's an outside shot, but after Hamilton retires, could we see Ocon move to Mercedes to partner with Russell? Perhaps. It's a bit of an outside shot, and then maybe Oscar Piastri or someone comes into Alpine.
Yeah,
maybe in a few years down the line, give it another 2-3 years, and we could see that. But I think Russell will beat Ocon anyway to the World Championship.
Yeah. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for Hungary. That's 11 races down and 10 to go. So I believe we'll take a short break and we'll be back for the second.
We'll have our winter break akin to the summer break after Hungary. But we'll come back in part 2, kick things off with Spa, and then go around to the end of the season.
Good. Well, see you in a bit, and stay tuned.